My name is Kevin Trutman. I'm the president of Feather River College. For those of you I have not met, your first job when you leave here is to go tell Leo West, who's my boss, what a great job I'm doing. Why is Feather River College even involved in learning about a TBID? And Feather River College has economic development as one of our missions for the community college. We obviously don't have a vote in the TOT or TBID or any other tourism aspect, but we do have students that provide labor for us and want to go into this area. So in our role as the economic development arm of the county, Feather River College is sponsoring these forums so that people can become educated about what this thing called TBID is. So we've had a number of these. We brought Carl Roboto in a couple months ago, and some of you may have heard his presentation on the impact of marketing and what that means. Verna has come to the Tourism Council, and this morning we were over in Lake Almanor in Chester presenting the same presentation. There's a handout with a PowerPoint. If you need an electronic copy, it is on Feather River College's homepage. We just did a brand new website, it popped up yesterday, and it's on the front page. A link to it is on Feather River College's homepage. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Verna. She's going to do the presentation and have questions as we come along.
Awesome, thanks Kevin. Again, my name is Verna Solfizio. I'm with a company called Civitas. We are based out of Sacramento, California, and we specialize in the formation and renewal of special improvement districts. A tourism improvement district is a type of special improvement district. There are 85 of these districts in California, and Civitas has either formed or renewed 64 of them. So we have a lot of experience in these types of districts, so I trust you are in good hands. If we could just do introductions real quick, just your name and then what company or property or organization you represent would be really helpful for me.
I'm Tracy. I own the Ranchito Motel in Quincy.
Bob Hickman, Shalaby Lodge.
Carrie Hickman, Shalaby Lodge.
Jim Gadsby, Restorative Junction.
Mike Clausen, Big Fish Creations.
Abby Clausen, Big Fish Creations.
Jerry Crowe, Lodge at White Hawk.
James Smith, Explore Sierra Touring Company.
Pat Martin, Fort Hill City Council.
Audrey Ellis, East Plumas Chamber.
We got Kevin and
CC Reynolds, I own Vacation Rentals in Quincy.
Karen Moritz, I'm with the Tourism Council.
Valerie Miller, Ada's Place, and Tourism Council.
wonderful, thank you. Now, who's heard this presentation before? I think only, okay, perfect. I've been up here once chatting about tourism improvement districts. Who's heard of the concept of a tourism improvement district before? Okay, awesome. Then I don't have to do my presentation, I'm good. Just kidding. So what's a tourism improvement district? A tourism improvement district is a stable source of funding for marketing efforts designed to increase occupancy and room rates. A tourism improvement district is not an organization. It's not a board of directors. It's actually a stable funding source. So when we talk about a tourism improvement district, what we're talking about is creating a stable funding source. And how that source is created is through a non-tax assessment based on lodging stays. Does anybody know the difference between a tax and an assessment? City Council doesn't care. So the difference in a tax and an assessment is it goes back to benefit. An assessment legally must benefit those who pay, different than TOT or sales tax, where the amount can go into a general fund used for different things. An assessment legally has to be formed and used to provide a service that only benefits those who pay the assessment. So that's what we're talking about, an assessment. So the thing that I find that's really interesting about tourism improvement districts is they really function behind the scenes of some of the largest tourism organizations. Visit California is actually funded through a tourism assessment district. The Walnut Creek area has a tourism assessment district. Yosemite, Mariposa, they have a tourism improvement district. The Napa Valley has a very successful tourism improvement district. These function behind the scenes of the outface to the world. They're actually what your brand or market or story is. These function behind the scenes to provide a stable funding source for you to provide these services. So we refer to these things in several different phrases: a tourism improvement district, a tourism marketing district, a TBID, a TID, a hotel improvement area. They're pretty much all the same things. It's just different names for them. So sometimes they're interchangeable. So if we go from a tourism improvement district or a tourism business improvement district, we're talking about the same type of thing. So I probably don't need to talk too much about what the actual economic impact of tourism is. You guys work the industry, you guys see it on a day-to-day basis. I mean, I'll ask the question, is tourism important to this community? We did a study a couple years ago with Cal Travel, which is the statewide association for tourism marketing, to talk to areas about what has actually been the economic impact of tourism. This information is summarized in a handout, which I have for you guys, but it really just talks about that. $1 trillion is generated through international visitors. 1 out of 9 jobs in the United States rely on tourism. It's a top 10 industry, which I think is incredible. And even with all of this, governments are still continuing to divert funds from tourism marketing promotion into other programs. Historically, here's another part of the handout. This is just kind of breakdown with numbers of some of the benefits to tourism promotion. We've got over 81,000 jobs that these tourism improvement districts have actually provided, $2.8 billion in income. And the thing that a lot of jurisdictions really love to see is that these tourism improvement districts have actually created $493 million in new sales tax revenue for the state of California. That's huge. These are all driven by the private sector.
Just so maybe you can get a picture, what's the slow tourism season in this area? Because we were at Lake Altamore today and they have a different population. So what's your slow season?
Winter? Yeah, we heard about September until maybe about May-ish.
It's in more like November to April.
November to April.
Yeah.
So funding for tourism. Can you guys see this okay? Okay, so several different ways that tourism marketing has been funded historically. A lot of counties have had an allocation from transit occupancy tax. You guys understand that you collect that. Small percentage can go to tourism marketing. A lot of organizations, they've done co-op marketing and membership models, kind of like, you pay a chamber membership or you pay for a certain advertisement. And then there's a new phenomenon, tourism improvement districts, which we'll talk about most. The difficulty with transient occupant tenants and what we've seen recently is that based on our survey, only less than 20% of TOT collected actually comes back to tourism promotion. Does this area get any money right now from TOT for tourism promotion?
No.
And unfortunately, that's very common across the entire state. If you do get money from tourism, from TOT, it's really vulnerable to budget crisis. It comes with strings attached, and it really is, depending on who's sitting on city council or the board of supervisors, you may or may not get guaranteed that same amount of funding year to year. A lot of areas have also used the co-op marketing and bureau membership model. This is similar to a chamber of commerce where people actually pay for a membership service. The difficulty with this type of model when you're doing destination marketing is it really creates an unlabeled playing field. If only a quarter of the properties are paying for the ad and you're marketing the entire area, it's not necessarily fair for the folks who aren't paying that are receiving the same type of benefit. So you definitely get that free rider issue, and when it comes to destination marketing, there's definitely an unlabeled playing field. And then the concept of a tourism improvement district. So these TIDs, they raise money through a special benefit assessment. Lodging partners are the key to the initiative, and that's why we're having these meetings to talk about what this is and how you guys can be involved in the process if you're interested in moving it forward. Owners, and when I say owners, lodging properties, work together to promote on area-wide promotion and activities that benefit business. And ultimately, the owners control the money and the management of how the money is spent. This is not going to a general fund. The county, the city cannot take this money. This is controlled by those who are collected the assessment. And it's a stable funding source, and it's legally has to be dedicated to benefit those who pay. These districts, there's 85 of them operating in California right now, all the way from a hotel district all the way to San Diego that raises over $30 million. These tourism improvement districts started in West Hollywood in '92, and you've seen throughout the years that the number just keeps increasing. Our firm actually wrote the legislation that these districts are formed off of in California, and so Civitas has been hired by some other states to write that same legislation. You're in a really good position in California that no statewide legislation has to be written to give you guys the opportunity to form this. Just a kind of list of you've seen, just the incredible increase of these districts that have been formed over the last several years. And this comes back to why do people form these districts? Obviously, the number one reason is the city county is reducing their budget. 45% of districts, they had TOT money for marketing, and then that went away. But then you'll see 32%, which you guys fall into, that there actually is no money for tourism marketing. And then here are several of the, I don't know if you guys can see this, but several of the larger tourism groups, San Francisco, LA, San Diego. This red here is what they raise from the tourism improvement district that they have in the region compared to their entire budget. So you'll see it has a huge impact of what they're able to do by raising this money through the tourism assessment. So, a summary of these districts. These districts are an assessment of tourism businesses, specifically lodging partners. It's a compulsory assessment, so when we go through this process and do outreach and talk about, let's say we do a county-wide district, if the county votes to approve this, all lodging parcels in the county would be assessed, collecting the assessment. So you don't have that issue of a free rider. As I mentioned earlier, lodging businesses are the key to the initiative. Money is raised through an assessment on lodging stays. Typically, the assessment is either a percentage or a dollar amount that gets passed on to the customer. It gets collected by the county alongside TOT and then comes back to an owners association that then allocates the fund for sales and marketing. That owners association is really those who are paying the assessment. So it's absolutely governed by those who are collecting and paying the assessment. If it's multi-jurisdictional, every jurisdiction must consent. So in Plumas County, we have one city, the city of Portola. So if we do a county-wide district, we would have to go to the city of Portola and ask them, and I say them as the city council, to give the county the ability to form the district. And finally, this assessment district, legally, it must benefit those who pay. So its goal is to put heads in beds and promote tourism. So I wanted to just chat about some of the tourism improvement districts in California. Sacramento County, this is a district we worked on in 2012. It was an 89 Act district, and then it modernized to the 1994 Act, which is the law that we're looking at for Plumas County. Assessment varies based on zone. And in Sacramento, we've got a convention center right in the heart of downtown. And that's the number one driver to bring people in at large groups. So the folks that have hotels near the convention center pay a higher rate. They pay 3%. If you know the Sacramento area at all, as you kind of move out to maybe the Arden Mall and towards the Elk Grove area, those hotels pay a lesser assessment because they receive less benefit. This district, originally it raised about $2.7 million. When we modernized it and we updated the zones, they're now raising $5.2 million a year, and that money goes to the Sacramento Convention District Bureau to put heads in beds. Because of the different assessment rates, we have different zones, and they have different micro-marketing plans, and there's committees that are made up of folks in those areas to allocate funds for certain programs that they're interested in. And ultimately, it's marketing and sales promotion to benefit all the lodging partners in Sacramento County. I didn't even realize this, but the convention and tourism industry in Sacramento is a $2.04 billion industry. I lived there and I didn't even realize that, but it's a huge economic driver in Sacramento. South Lake Tahoe. So the conversation has been, some people have said, well, if we're going to do a tourism district, why don't we assess every tourism type business in the area? And ultimately, it comes down to the difficulty or the complexity to actually collect that assessment. In South Lake Tahoe, they actually started with a business assessment and they realized it was not working well, so they converted that district to an assessment on just lodging properties. They assess on a flat fee, so not a percentage, and it's $3 for motels and hotels and $4.50 for condos and vacation rentals. And they raise almost $2 million a year on that assessment structure. In the city of San Diego, largest tourism improvement district in California, originally formed for a 5-year term. And then going into renewal, they wanted to keep the district around longer than what the current state law allows. So we helped them write a charter city ordinance so that the district could renew for 30 years. So they went through the same process any district goes through with the full vote and through city council. Everybody's behind this 30-year district because they realize how valuable the tourism money that is raised through this, what an impact it makes on their economy. They assess all the hotels. The assessments range from 0.55% to 2%, and it's based on gross revenue. They raise $30 million a year, and they have 2 pots of money that this goes into. 50% goes to the Convention and Visitors Bureau, and then 50%, which is $15 million, goes to the tourism board where they actually look at programs that folks come and recommend to them, and they decide whether or not they think it would be a good program in the area, and then they allocate money for these programs. So it's a formalized application process where somebody can come in and say, I have this idea for an event or an activity. I can guarantee you this many rooms, this many heads and beds. And then if the Tourism Bureau thinks that it's a valuable investment, they'll actually write a check and allow that event provider to create that event to bring people into San Diego.
And same question I asked before, these don't have to be new events, they could be existing events, like the 4th of July fireworks, they could come and say, wait a minute, this is costing us this much, but it's bringing this ROI into the area, so could you use the money to fund like the fireworks show?
Absolutely, absolutely. So the goal of this district is to put heads in beds, and if you can tie a benefit to an event that's either happening now or could happen, these tourism dollars can be allocated for that. If there's a regular summer event that happens here, or maybe you guys want to do something, create a special event during your off season to bring people in and stay longer than just a day, this is what that tourism money is for.
And that's all decided by that committee?
Absolutely. So when I say governed by those who pay, that governing board, it's a new nonprofit corporation that's formed, which I'll talk a little bit more about. They're the ones that decide. So San Diego, going to just pull up a quick video. And this Happy Happens was something that the tourism district did. And I don't know if you guys have seen any of the advertisements, but it was, they did a TV campaign, so commercials, billboards, print, but it was all around the basis of Happy Happens in San Diego. So if you go to sandiego.org, that's the tourism website, and what you'll see from that is that they don't market just one certain thing. They've got the beach in there. You see a little bit of the orca, so you know they're talking a little bit about SeaWorld. But they're just touching on a lot of the different things that you can do in the area to bring people to San Diego. And they're really selling an idea of San Diego as a whole. We've got a lot of great things for you to do. We've got beautiful weather. We've got water. It's not just come to SeaWorld or just come stay in this great hotel. It's come visit and experience a whole area. And so when I say county-wide promotion, city-wide promotion, that's the kind of stuff we're talking about. The area is a huge brand. Okay, let's start this again. So that's one of the things that San Diego does. So Yosemite, Mariposa. So the county of Mariposa is a very large county, and they have a tourism assessment district that was formed in 2008, an initial 5-year term with just a 1% assessment across the board. That initial 5 years, I think they raised, I want to say about $900,000. Because of their success, when they went into renewal, they kept that 1% assessment rate, but since TOT has gone up, their assessment collections have gone up too, so now they're collecting $1.2 million annually from this assessment, and that's just 1% across the board. They did some studies, and the results in 2011, revenue grew by 9.6%, and they can calculate that $10 million in new lodging business has been generated from formation of this tourism improvement district.
And that's all in Yosemite itself? Or?
That's the county of Mariposa. And so that's properties, vacation rentals, that's folks up by Fish Camp. You know, it's a huge county that has a bunch of different areas, and they market the entire area. And what was really interesting is they actually had a new executive director kind of halfway through, we were going through renewal. And I don't know if you remember, I'm probably going to get this wrong, but Yosemite has had its share of challenges the last few years with bad PR with health issues. And so what this group was able to do is they had a marketing agency that they work with, and they had, a plan that they were going through about, why everything's so great here. They, as soon as, it wasn't Ebola, but, whatever their outbreak was, they feet on the brakes, switched around, went back to their marketing agency and said, our marketing campaigns are not going to work right now. We need to tell people it's still safe to come here. So they were able to respond to market conditions, and the private sector was able to make a really quick change because of this funding that they had to change their marketing completely. It wasn't anything that had to be set in stone, for the 5-year period. There was flexibility in their plan to make changes and respond to get people to actually still come to Mariposa County to confirm that it was still safe to be there. I have some information about a place in California called Concord. Has anyone ever been to Concord? Okay, so a lot of times when people think, when I say destination marketing, people think I'm talking about a destination like Napa Valley, Monterey, San Diego. Destination marketing, consider it like area marketing. Concord, an area that you wouldn't really consider a destination, got together and I think it was in 2012 we first sat down with them about this concept of a tourism improvement district. And it all came because one of the large hotels was on a plane and they opened an advertisement and there was a big ad for Tri-Valley. And Tri-Valley is a tourism improvement district that sits right next to Concord. And they said, there's nothing going on in Tri-Valley. Tri-Valley can get tourism, we can too. We need to have an ad in here too. And that was the impetus of forming this district. We had a steering committee that worked with the city and the local chamber, and we were able to form this district in 6 months. They do a 3% assessment on all the hotels in the city of Concord, and there's one property that sits right outside the city borders that we haven't written into the plan too. And with their 3% assessment, they raised $750,000 a year. 2013 was when the district was formed, and once the district was formed, the first thing they did is they went out to RFP for a marketing agency because they wanted to rebrand Concord. So with their $750,000, they've hired a firm that has rebranded Concord as the Diablo Valley. They have a logo, they have a website, they have a Facebook page, and their tagline is Defying Expectations. So Concord, literally at the beginning of 2013, went from no marketing to billboards on the side of Highway 80, an active Facebook page, local promotions, and they're just in their first year of operation. So it's really exciting to see these folks think really outside of the box when it comes to tourism promotion to bring people in to stay in their hotels. I'd like to talk about Napa Valley a little bit because I think a lot of people, once again, just assume certain areas with great amenities, people just come regardless. Not the case. Napa Valley, when they kind of started marketing themselves in 1990. It was called the Napa Valley Conference and Visitors Bureau, and they operated up till 2008 with less than $500,000 for marketing. They were actually viewed as less than reliable by other marketing agencies, San Francisco Travel, the Cal Travel Association, and they realized that what they were doing just wasn't working. And so in 2009, they became the Napa Valley Destination Council, and they did a complete organizational overhaul. So before they went through the overhaul, you can see Napa Valley had less than $500,000 for tourism promotion. Sonoma County had 4.5, Monterey 4.2, and Temecula even had $1 million. So they knew they weren't doing something right. We came in, they hired us, and we formed a tourism improvement district that has all 5 cities and towns in Napa counties and all the unincorporated areas. Initially, the district was formed for 5 years, and legally, when these districts are formed, you can form up to 5 years, and at renewal, you can go up to 10. They're just finishing their renewal now and renewing for 10 years. The assessment is just 2% across the board. Very simple, even for this whole area of Napa County, 2% across the board. Their initial budget when they were formed was $4 million. Because they were so successful, the current budget is now $6 million. Property owners are incredibly happy. When it was time to sign the petitions to renew the district, you know, they were over 50% in less than an hour. So Napa Valley has a great website as well too. I won't play the video because it's a little long, but if you go to the Napa Valley, visit napavalley.com, they have this great video that you can see here that talks about 4 minutes, but you know, beautiful, it's an HD video that kind of flies over Napa Valley and just talks about all the great things there are, from wine to food to activities that are throughout the whole county. This is a new slide, it's not in your handout, but I wanted to bring this out to you. We did a survey recently with all of our tourism improvement districts and asked for them to give us some feedback on specific results that they have seen in the area. And then, you know, it just kind of pulled on the slideshow. So 40% increase in hotel stays between 2010 and 2013. Overall results of the initial 5-year district was approximately 20 to 1. We have seen over 100% increase in weekend stays, 800% ROI on TBID funds, increased generated room nights 550% since 2008. These districts are wildly successful. There's 85 of them in California, and the number is increasing monthly. So steps to actually forming one of these districts. So the first thing that we do is we form a steering committee, and we look for lodging properties representing the entire area. So if we do a Plumas County district, we're looking for property owners who are supportive of this process throughout the entire county. We spend a lot of time with this group doing stakeholder research and education. So kind of like what we're doing today, with one-on-one meetings, small group meetings, large group meetings, to talk about what a tourism improvement district is, what are the benefits to it. And during this whole time, we're talking about district parameters and what it actually looks like. The biggest sticking point for this conversation is going to be, what's the assessment going to be? We have to get everybody on the same page of the term, the boundaries, the assessment, and once we do that, we draft a management district plan. This is a document that the district is governed by for its initial term. Once everybody agrees on this district plan, we then have to come back out to the lodging properties and get a petition, a signed petition of support saying, yes, I want this to go to the Board of Supervisors for a vote. We're required to collect petitions of support of over 50% based on assessment. We do not get to 50%, the project halts. We continue collecting petitions until we get to 50%. And during the outreach process, we have a pretty good idea based on some background data and outreach if we can get to that 50% number and if the district's going to be successful. Once we get through the petition drive, we have about a 2-month hearing process in front of the County Board of Supervisors. We have it, yeah.
Brooke, can you talk a little bit about how the assessment's calculated? Okay.
So assessments can be calculated 2 ways. It can be based on a percentage. So maybe you charge 2-3% on a room night, or you can do a flat fee, $1, $2, $3, $4, something like that. So there's 2 different ways the assessment can be calculated. We calculate what the total district's revenue would be based on, depending on which calculation that is, and then your vote has to do with how much you pay into that assessment. So we have a district that collects, just making a number up here, $100,000, and your property would collect $10,000 of that total assessment. You have a 10% vote for the formation of this district. So the total calculation is based on whether we go flat percent or percentage, flat dollar amount or percentage, and then we do some calculations with the county behind the scenes on like what actually vote percentages come out to be. Then we go to the Board of Supervisors, and we have 3 stops at the Board of Supervisors. In that time, we would also go visit the City Council of the City of Portola and chat with them about this district, and they would have to grant a resolution of consent for the county to form, come back to the county, and at that final hearing, if we do not get protests, majority protests of over 50% in writing, the Board of Supervisors can adopt the resolution of formation and form the district. This is a sample organizational structure. So what happens is, the goal of this district is to want to keep it as administratively simple as possible. So the TBID assessment is collected alongside TOT, and it comes into the county when folks are submitting their TOT. There would be a contract between Plumas County and a new nonprofit owners association. That nonprofit owners association is made up of our recommendation, and I could say best practices, is a board of lodging properties that are paying the assessment, representing small, medium, and large properties all throughout the county. There's a contract between Plumas County and that new nonprofit owners association regarding when the assessment's going to be dispersed, if we're going to go, how we're going to charge delinquencies, things of that sort. And the county will likely charge us a 1% fee for that kind of collection, and that's pretty standard throughout the state. That board that's formed, that could be the Plumas County Tourism Authority, Plumas County Tourism Improvement District Corporation, ultimately becomes the decision-making body for these TID funds. They decide what programs and services get implemented. They decide who they hire to implement these programs and services. But they also have a good opportunity to reach out to other lodging partners and put committees together. An ad hoc committee could get put together for a certain event that you might be interested in. There could be an standing membership or marketing committee that meets monthly to look at applications from folks who actually want to do programs in the area. So there's a lot of opportunity to not only get involved on a board level, but also on a committee level too. That nonprofit association is required to follow Brown Act and Public Records Act. They're required to hold open meetings. All the meetings are noticed. That if a website gets developed, that information from the meeting and minutes should be made available online. So nothing's happening behind the scenes, behind closed doors. These are open meetings that not only the folks that are paying the assessment get to attend, but members of the public get to as well.
So before you leave this slide, you earlier mentioned that it's easier to, what I would say, piggyback off the TOT with the Plumas County. And then secondly, you said that's why just the hotel, or the people who pay TOT, the hoteliers, but not the business people, because then you have Plumas County doing the collections instead of another agency. Let's say you had restaurants in there too. Then you have to have an agency doing collections on top of that.
That's correct.
Eat into the money. Am I assuming that correct?
Yes, that's absolutely correct. So out of the 85 tourism improvement districts in California, only one of them assesses anything outside of hotels or lodging partners. And it's
Which one is it?
It's Mammoth Lakes.
Mammoth Lakes.
And it comes down to the ease of collection, the cost for actually collecting that, and it really ties back to the benefit that these districts are paying. These districts can be fairly simple, as if you put heads and beds, but when you start bringing in other type of retail and restaurant establishments, it becomes a little bit more different for you to legally make that connection of benefit.
That was, yeah.
So that you could have the Portola Main Street TBID, as small as that, but what they would collect and then what they would pay out to have somebody collect would then pretty much eat up anything you would.
That you raised, yeah. Let's see, so if we decided to form a district, how long would it take? On average, these districts take between 6 and 12 months. That Concord district I told you about, they were so excited, we got through that district in 6 months, which is the fastest tourism improvement district we formed. In Plumas County, I believe it will take 8 months, and you'll see here, a big portion of this is outreach. This is talking to everybody we can about this district. We draft documents, we come back out, make document revisions, once we get feedback from everybody. We've got a month and a half in here for a petition drive, and then we've got a little over 2 months for our board of supervisors hearing. So if we kicked off this project in August, you ultimately could be collecting this money starting April 1st.
How much does it cost to do all that?
Civitas provided a proposal to Lisa Kelly at Moons, and she'd be happy to give it to you. I think our number was about $42,000.
I mean, same company.
Yeah, so we've got a proposal out on the table you guys are welcome to get a copy of.
And the proposal is different than another bid, so that funding can then be repaid by the TBID collection.
Yeah, so the question we always get is, well, who pays for this formation? And every new district that's formed gets paid for differently. Back in the good old days, we had this thing called redevelopment. Redevelopment funds a lot of times are allocated for these type of programs, and with no caveat that they needed to be refunded. In some districts, the Chamber of Commerce might come up with the initial investment, knowing that they would be paid back. Some areas, the County Board of Supervisors has some money that they get to make decisions on and decides that they want to allocate. Sometimes the county pays for the entire district without any expectation that they're going to get paid back. So there's no science to this. It just depends on what works for your
Sometimes
area.
there's fundraisers that could then be paid back.
Some areas, the county's committed to, let's say, half of the program, and they're asking for property owners to pitch in the other half, because the county wants to see that the property owners have skin in the game, and they want to see us be successful.
When you're talking about property owners, you're talking
Lodging
about
property owners, correct. So how much could be raised in Plumas County? So I ran some initial calculations based on 2012 TOT numbers. And if we did a 2 to 3% assessment, we could raise anywhere between $315,000 and $471,000 a year that could be used for tourism marketing. When you break that down, between $26,000 and almost $40,000 a month, which I think is a nice chunk of change to get some work done. So when I talk about starting this project in August, every month that we don't start this project is $26,000 to $39,000 that we're leaving on the table that you guys aren't collecting.
And then once again, who controls that money?
The owners, the folks that are collecting the assessment.
That's committee or whatever you call it.
And I'll tell you guys this, once the district is formed, Civitas is not involved. We do not see any of this assessment revenue. This is all your guys' money. You guys can hire Civitas to form your corporation if you're interested in that. You guys can form a corporation on your own as well. So I get excited about seeing big numbers because I know you can do a lot with that money. I'm not getting excited because Civitas has any skin in the game with how much money gets actually raised.
It's a 5-year term.
Pardon?
It's an initial 5-year.
Initially, you can go anywhere for up to 5 years. 5 years usually makes the most sense, so you have enough time to really start showing results. This is a map that isn't perfect, but it's a larger set of map. So one of the things we look at when we do outreach and we actually talk about what the assessment could be, we look at surrounding areas because obviously you guys need to remain competitive in the marketplace. So let's take the 3% assessment that I threw out there to start with. 3% itself is kind of on the higher end of assessments, but since Plumas County only has 9% TOT, if you take 9 and then add 3, that combined amount of 12% is actually really low compared to other areas. So while 3% might be high on the assessment scale, when you combine it with your TOT, it actually comes out fairly low. Mammoth Lake's 15% combined. South Lake Tahoe, as I mentioned, they do a flat fee, so it's 10% plus whatever their flat fee amount is. Siskiyou County is looking at a 2% assessment. Their combined would be 10%, but TOT is incredibly low. Sonoma County combined 14, San Francisco 15. So if that's something that you're concerned about, we definitely structure the assessment so it's feasible for you guys, but also you guys can remain competitive in the marketplace. The future tourism improvement districts, I mentioned these blended assessment structures. There is only one district that has this blended assessment structure. Siskiyou County, once they finalize the district form, they will have all lodging properties and one ski resort. And that's going to be a little bit easier for them to actually implement and collect from. And as I mentioned earlier, the challenge is really the linkage between the programs of the assessment and the defined businesses. And legally, you're required to keep that strong linkage of benefit. And if you're not doing that, the district could be challenged. What has been successful is instead of doing huge retail restaurant districts, we've seen areas get a little bit more specific and do restaurant retail districts. And there's actually 3 what we consider RBIDs, restaurant retail business improvement districts in California. The Sutter district and the Handle district are both in Sacramento, so they are within the county tourism improvement district. They have an assessment on businesses, 1.5% assessment on food and beverage. They both raise about $200,000 a year. $200,000 is a nice chunk of change to do things with. The Sutter district right now is in the process of Sacra Tomato Week. So they've got all the restaurants and bars doing special menus that have to do revolve around locally sourced tomatoes. So events and activities to bring people down. The Handle district is doing a really great job branding the area, bringing in really cool bike racks and bringing in little areas for dogs to tie up to, because they want that area to be a destination for bikes and dogs, because they know people with dogs have the money that want to go places, they need a place that they can take their dogs. So that's been a high priority of them. This executive director, $200,000 is money. He would tell you it was not worth it for $200,000, how much time he spends of his own trying to collect that assessment. Because there just isn't an easy way to collect this assessment. So they've actually had to hire a private collection agency to hand bill. People aren't paying, call ahead of time. Unfortunately, they had people on the board when the district was formed that was like, oh, I gotta pay my bill, so they were even behind. So they're kind of getting up on the swing of things. The district's almost been around for about 3 years, so hopefully it's looking better the last couple of years. And then finally, Newport Beach, it's a bigger district. They've got a fixed rate for all their businesses in a certain area downtown, and they raise about $315,000 a year.
So what are some things like the Handle District or Sutter does specifically?
Sutter district, it's all marketing. They actually are outshoot. They run under one of the downtown improvement districts. They have a committee. They've hung up street banners that say Sutter district throughout the area. They do bike and brew crawls where they actually organize, come to this place, bring your bike, and they take 100 people around to a bunch of different bars and restaurants through the area. They do stuff for Cinco de Mayo. Handle's gotten really in with Yelp, and they all do a bunch of Yelp parties. Handle also started the first Bastille Day race, the waiters race, that they actually shut down the street, and so they do the waiters competition, where waiters from restaurants within the Handle district compete running around down through the Handle district. They get hundreds of people just standing on the street, and they're going to the bars, they're going to the restaurants, they're shopping and spending money. So that's what those guys do. So I'd like to open it up for questions right now that you guys might have about this concept. And don't be shy, I've heard everything, and I want to be able to answer any questions that you guys have.
You've obviously done some research on this. What would be the avenues of marketing that you would be pursuing for Plumas County?
My recommendation for you guys would be the first thing is to hire an agency that specializes in this. And it would be either hiring like a Carl Roboto, or there's a firm that I've worked with it's in Roseville, called Augustine Ideas. And I just say them because I know them and I know what work they do, but they come in and they work with stakeholders on branding. They not only can do logos and graphic designs, but they've got an incredibly qualified marketing team with blogging, relationships with different magazines, and they ultimately just become your marketing director.
So what would their contract price be, approximately?
Depends on what kind of services you're looking for. It really, really does make a difference. It makes, on what you guys want. I think you guys have a really cool opportunity to utilize on your natural assets here to do some really cool events that people are looking for. Adventure races are huge right now, from the little mud runs to the 2-day Xterra Outbaggers that, folks flying from. You guys can also get a little bit more competitive when other activities happen. One of the big trends in tourism is the influx of Chinese visitors. And so in the past, it was always kind of, how do I explain this? It was like the state of California did marketing to China. But now what's happening is actually destinations are doing more peer-to-peer marketing. So if you were to, for example, hire a tour agency that would actually organize a bus trip of Chinese visitors, they would fly into San Francisco, they would load up on 4 buses, and you would bring them to Plumas County, and you would keep them here for a week. And you would take them all different places to shop, to eat, to kind of enjoy your county. I think there's a huge market for that type of stuff. That's really thinking outside of the box. These folks have money and they want to see California. I mean, California to some people is the most amazing thing ever. I think when we live in the middle of it, we kind of take it for granted. Even when I was driving up here, I've been here before, and I grew up camping with my family, but just, it's beautiful. And I think that if Concord can do this, a beautiful area like Plumas County can do it as well.
Carl had the observation. How many people saw Carl's presentation? Carl had the data that showed we were backwards from most counties in terms of, he had it broken up by restaurants and things like that. Our restaurant spending was higher than our lodging spending. He said it was the exact opposite in most counties. He said that tells me people are driving through and not spending the night. And so it's getting away from the onesie-twosies things like the, fireworks display or the high Sierra, but it's like, why would Plumas County be on the radar of people down at REI that are spending thousands of dollars to walk out with kayaks and bikes? The single lane, 2-lane motorcycle clubs, the, BMW motorcycle clubs, the whatever, why Chinese visitors, how are we getting on their radar? And that's some of his observations that he made. So I go back to, that's that steering committee to decide based upon the people, the board, who collects the money, and what's the best way to do that for the entire county. Don't think in terms of promoting one event. Think in terms of getting the people in the psyche to get them here, and then keep them here, because that data was really eye-opening. I mean, you guys saw it. They said they're not staying there. They're just driving through, buying lunch.
That's right, true.
Yeah, and then it's another thing is that if you have the money, you have the opportunity to tap into a lot of resources and specialists who focus on this and what tourism trends are. But another trend we've seen a lot are more holistic and health-focused trends, where they actually want to come out and they don't want cell phone service and they don't want to watch TV. There's groups that we've seen, they want to experience the local lifestyle. They don't want to go to the local Applebee's. They want to go to the restaurant that all the locals go to. They want to do things. If you lived in that community, what would they do? So you really have that opportunity to figure out who's the visitor you want to attack. That's a strong word, but you can do them all at the same time too. And so that's the great thing about this. And if something's working, continue doing it. If you're getting that ROI, continue doing it. If it's not, pull the plug and move a different direction. And the board has a decision to make those changes as they go through the program.
So just to recap and understand, so your company is helping form the district, and then the board, you help, I'm assuming, kind of form that initial board.
We can help form, that's outside of this scope, but we can help form the board. And so forming a corporation, you got articles and bylaws and filing with the Secretary of State, that type of stuff. We can help with that. And we can get you through your first board meeting, appoint, elect officers, appoint directors, go through that whole process. And then it's up to the board to decide what they want to do next.
I was gonna say that it's the board's decision to spend that money. There's obviously checks and balances of how that's being spent.
Annually, you're required to present an annual report to the county to make sure you're following your budget categories. Once a year, there is an anniversary on formation that if property owners are not happy with how this district's being run, you have the opportunity to actually petition the county to dissolve the district. If there's a majority protest, the board can look at dissolving the district. So there's a lot of accountability, but ultimately, the power of this district is going to be in the strength of your board of directors, that you have a board of directors that does represent the county, small properties, large properties, vacation rentals in all areas, because I know in this county, it's not just Quincy, it's not just Gray Eagle, it's the entire county. You're going to have good leaders on the board who can speak up and represent those areas. The money that's spent, if there's a certain event that this area wants to do, that money can be allocated for this area, as long as it can produce the ROI that has heads and beds. Everything that's done isn't just advertising websites, it can be specific to a certain area.
And you said some of these actually have like an application product. They have
Yeah.
certain pots set aside for an application.
Yeah, so in San Diego, for example, and Sacramento actually implemented this too. They actually have this application review committee, and if organizers of events need money to do whatever they're doing, they can actually fill out this intense, like 10-page application about who the event is, how it's funded, who organizes it, who's behind the scenes, and provide an ROI what they can provide. So this review committee in both San Diego and Sacramento, they look over this application, and they're like, we want $10,000 for this music festival. They're like, we think we're gonna get $30,000 back in this county because of this music festival. Sure, you can have $10,000. So Sacramento does that, and then I know San Diego, they've got $15 million that they do for that. So that's something that you guys could do as well, if that's of interest to you. If one of the chambers has an event that's interesting, if there's something, certain areas, there's a butterfly festival in Siskiyou County that was huge, but they couldn't get their $10,000. I'm like, $10,000 for a butterfly festival? You can tie that back and put it in heads and beds. This money can be spent on that. Siskiyou County, stocking the fish in the lake. Who would have thought? Paying to stock a fish actually impacts people who want to stay for long trips. That could be something you guys look at it too. As long as you can tie it back to putting heads in beds, this money can be spent on that. You guys are pretty easy. I had like 3 or 4 people in my morning presentation, and we talked for 2 hours.
I wanted to ask Tracy, did you have some questions that Joanna?
Is that what you have right there?
No.
No, her.
Jean Graham?
Oh.
Yeah,
Yeah, there were some questions.
I'm looking through them and most of them have been answered.
I haven't seen them, I just needed to.
Yeah.
So that business and there's a question, have the business and marketing plan been written? No, that gets written during this process. It's that management district plan that we look for feedback from the property owners to draft that. What will it cost to be formed? That's our proposal, that's out right now. What will the operating costs be? Day-to-day expenses, ad campaigns, personnel, office space, etc. That's up to the board to decide. Our recommendation is you decide what types of programs and services you want to have, and then fill it in with whether you want staff or you want to hire an organization. These districts are not required to have an office or a storefront. They can operate out of a room at somebody's hotel if they wanted to do that. Some have, in Siskiyou County, there's a large visitors bureau that sits, it's the Visit California Visitors Bureau. That's another opportunity. This money can bring in an actual Visit California Visitors Bureau, and you guys could operate out of there. So there's no rules about storefronts or anything like that. That's up for the board to decide.
Some of the questions that have come up before, what if decide they're not doing a good job or they're not spending the money wisely? This supervisor, I don't know if he's a supervisor, this directory board of directors. What if they're not doing a good job or people decide?
Well, the first thing I'll tell you is that initially this is a 5-year district. This is not a forever district. After 5 years, this district goes away. And if the property owners are not happy at the end of 5 years and have not seen the results, you just don't renew and it just goes away. If during the operations, first 5-year operations, there are significant problems, like I mentioned earlier, there's that anniversary of formation, the 30-day period where there can be a majority protest of the lodging owners. But also there's the ability if the board of directors is not functioning appropriately, the board can make decisions internally if they need to get new board members, if they need to vote different people on or off. So it's all kind of an operation of the organizations itself. But there's things that are built into the law that will protect property owners' investment in these districts.
Do we vote for the board of directors? Do the lodging providers vote for them? How do they get on the board?
So typically, this new board of director, the board that's created is typically, oh goodness, what's the word I'm looking for? Typically self-appointed. And a lot of times, the folks that have invested the 8 months on the steering committee, they're interested in continuing their service and being on the board. During outreach, there's a good chance that we might find some lodging properties that are like, I don't want to have anything to do with formation, but I'm really interested in being involved in operations. And if you guys if this steering committee, the group of lodging properties is happy with this group, this will be a self-appointing board of directors. My recommendation is probably anywhere between 7 and 11 folks, staggered terms, 1 to 3 years, so that you have different leadership through the whole time. A lot of times these districts continue to have the same leadership because they're the ones who want to invest the time. But if you guys are interested, you can always go out to a vote. Most of our districts do not do any type of voting for these. They don't, the lodging partners aren't actually voting members. It's the board will appoint incoming board members through operations. That's typically what happens.
But you were saying that it's proportionally based on contribution?
The formation process. So we have to go through that petition drive, and we have to collect petitions of support of lodging properties of over 50% of the total assessment to even go to our hearing process. So that's us getting consensus across the board to actually go to the board to form. Once the district's formed and you have a board of directors, it's 1 board member, 1 vote.
Is that lodging facilities entirely encompassing Plumas County?
At this point, yeah, that's what we're looking at, an entire county-wide district. There's a lot of benefits to doing a county-wide district versus just a certain area. One is you have the ability to market all the amenities in the area. There's definitely that element of the more lodging properties that you assess, the more money you can raise, and you can kind of do more if you all go together.
It also goes back to that collection, because if you don't follow the countywide TOT collection, then this board is on their own to do their own collection.
So there's
Which is gonna
definitely
get very
some.
expensive very fast.
The thing that we've seen is that this is a region unto itself, more or less. When people come up here, they're going to Sierra County, they're going to Sierra Valley, you know what I mean? You know, but I guess the marketing can address that. you know,
Absolutely.
and it can cross over, but it doesn't have to be specifically directed only in Plumas County.
It doesn't. As long as you're bringing people in and they're putting heads in beds, that's what you need to be doing. There's nothing to say that you guys don't have the opportunity to work with any other areas and going on a co-op marketing program to bring people in because you want to do like a full loop of some sort. But there's absolutely opportunities for that. As long as you can tie back a benefit to your hoteliers that are paying the assessment, you're in the clear. So another question is, what is the expected time frame for return on investment? This really comes down to the board and how quickly they are how quickly they are able to implement their programs. You saw what those ROIs numbers were. I think it's going to take the district at least a year to kind of get up and moving. But once you start moving, you're going to see a continual return. Who's going to collect the money? I mentioned that. Keep it as administratively as simple as possible. Collect alongside TOT. What's the cost? County will likely charge 1% for that. Let's see, what is going to be the cost to visitor? That's part of this outreach that we have, is we decide what you as lodging properties think. And we've got time if you guys wanted to chat us a second. If what do you think about, a 2% assessment? What about a 3% assessment? Would you rather do $2 flat rate?
Well, I'll add this, I'm already assessing 2% over TOT on my I have 2 small vacation rentals.